Hey everyone, Demonic Pacts is right around the corner, and in today's analysis video, we're going to go deep into Abundance, a brand new T1 relic, so let's get right into it. So I'm going to give a quick overview of Abundance. If you haven't seen the spoiler of this new relic, I'll kind of set the base of what we're expecting to have as options here. I'm going to talk about the early, mid, and late game impacts. I'm also going to talk about how this is a GP engine, and then we're going to compare this to Equilibrium, a relic we've seen in the past, where this one is comparatively relatively similar, but it gets a little bit different as we get into the late game. So let's talk about Abundance. So this is a brand new relic. Now, I know in the spoiler, kind of put the coin generation part at the top, but I've moved that to the bottom just because it aligns with the coin copy. So first of all, the first thing to note is all of your non-combat skills are permanently boosted by 10. This means you don't have to do those low-level training methods. You can immediately start with a slightly better training methods at level 10. This is fantastic. It kind of really boosts you in the early game. Remember, at the start, we only have a 5x XP multiplier, but being able to do slightly higher and more difficult content for training methods will allow you to get way better XP. So this is kind of an initial boost to that initial XP rate as well. Every time you receive an XP drop, you gain an additional 2 XP in the same skill, and this is affected by that boost. So effectively, this starts at 10 XP per kind of action, and it goes all the way up to 32 XP because our max XP multiplier is 16x. And then for every XP gained, you gain twice as many coins. Now remember, this doesn't apply just to the 2 XP drop that you're getting that's getting multiplied. This applies to the entire XP drop, right? So like if you plant a big tree that gives you tens of thousands of experience, right, you get 2x as many coins. Remember, all of your XP drops are multiplied by 5x to 16x, and that also applies to the XP drop coin calculation here. So it's kind of a massive amount. It's really nice that they've also added this toggleable effect that will put the coins into your bank. This way you can, either not have to carry around a coin stash, but you can keep generating them. This is mainly important in like PVM situations when you're killing monsters and you're generating coins, but then like they're filling up your inventory or whatever. It's just kind of nice that you can just keep banking when you're doing PVM things. All right, so the early game impact, and this is where I think we're going to see some of the biggest value to this. Just remember, when you're cleaning Guams, that's a 2.5 XP drop, right? Even if with the 5x multiplier, it's only 12.5 XP. But in addition to that, you're going to get a flat 10 additional XP, right? That's an 80% increase. That's absolutely massive. The same thing also applies to arrow shafts. Now remember, arrow shafts you're making in a bunch at a time depending on what logs you're using. Also when you're adding feathers to them, that's also a different multiplier, so just keep that in mind. It's actually going to impact that total increase. It's not going to be as large as you think because you're making a bundle at a time, but still it's a pretty good boost because at early levels it's a really nice kind of added 10 XP, right? Same thing applies to all of your magic, and then that also applies to all of your combat skills. So like for example, if you're training uncontrolled and you're getting really small XP drops for attack, strength, and defense and hit points, all of them are going to be getting that extra 10 XP with the 5x multiplier. That's actually really phenomenal for early training. It kind of, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself and, stick to the controlled method. You can train any of the methods, but it is definitely beneficial for like range and magic. If you train defensive, you can triple gain that XP in 3 areas instead of just 2 with hit points. This will level up your hit points a lot faster just because hit points is inherently a relatively slow skill, and now you're going to get it a lot faster. Also early on Slayer, if you're killing small monsters and getting small drops, all of those again you're going to get that benefit. In addition to that, thieving is definitely a really important early on skill, and so just pickpocketing men and women would be a lot easier. Now remember, you're going to get that 10 level boost, so you're going to be able to jump to the next training method early on in the process, right? And so you're not really going to be doing these low level methods too long, but they are there. And then for mining, also you're going to be mining copper and tin until you can get to iron. So this is only going to impact maybe the first few minutes of your training methods. But again, there is a added benefit to the XP multiplier, right? 11% is nothing to shy away from. If you think about all the gear sets we have in RuneScape, like the mining boosting sets or any of the other ones, they give at most a 2.5%, right? Like the Wintertop Pyromancer set gives a 2.5%, and same thing applies to the Lumber lumberjack outfit, and so on, right? So 11% is substantial early on in the game, right? That's just going to be approximately how much time you could potentially save. Now, obviously, remember this scales up and down as your levels, but also remember you're going to get a greater XP multiplier, so you're going to go from 5 to 8x pretty early on, and that's going to be a nice boost as well. Moving on into the mid game, okay? So fletching is a really good one because darts are spammable, right? And they're a relatively small thing. Now remember, the darts also you're going to be making not one at a time, but you're going to be making 10 at a time. So again, I think these numbers are off. You actually want to do the 10x multiplier. But if you were to make one at a time, it would be at 26.6%. When you're making 10 at a time, you're only adding a 12 times 2, which is 24 to the 900. So it's 924. Again, so I showed this as a number at 26.6% intentionally to be like, oh, it could be that large. No, it is not. Okay, it is much smaller than you think because you're making a batch of darts at once, 10 darts at one time. Okay, so keep that in mind. However, mining and other things that are fast tick rate kind of things, you're gonna get that boost, right? So mining, if you can do 3 tick ore, you're gonna get that XP drop, and again, 5.7%, again, significantly better than that 2.5%. Now remember, your XP gains and your rates overall in leagues is so fast that it's probably not gonna make that much of a difference. But if you are planning on maxing and leveling up all of your skills, every single 5%, 2%, 4%, whatever those gains are really going to benefit from this skill, right? This is a really well-rounded skill. It's really going to kind of carry you out of the early game. It's going to get you access to, really good XP rates and gold generation as well. And it kind of boosts you out of the mid game. But when we get into the late game, you'll notice these numbers almost become negligible, okay? When you're bursting magic, and here I have put 100 damage, right? This obviously depends a little bit on your magic accuracy or magic damage, but remember, in leagues, and of course you may not have access to burst spells, right? And the same thing applies to range and chinchampas, but remember, typically you'll have those masteries, combat masteries, which will boost your damage and your accuracy, and you might on average probably be hitting around 100 damage per hit when you're bursting, hitting a group. Now, because that is such a large XP drop, you're going to be getting almost no benefit from this. Now, don't forget, you're still going to get XP into hit points, and then if you trained in defensive, you will also get experience into defense, right? And so that does add up, and because those are smaller XP drops, you are getting that added benefit. But again, the percentage and the overall impact becomes overall pretty negligible, even going up to mithril darts. So in this case, I decided to give you the full calculation. Mithril darts make 112 XP per drop, right? You multiply that by 16x at the highest multiplier, then you only add the 16 times 2 points into here, 32 XP, and then that will only give you a really small, almost measly, not even 2%, right? This is less than that gear boost that we get in the league or in the game, and so just keep that in mind. It becomes really negligible. Arty Knights, Moonlight Moths, Gem Rocks, these are some like the faster click methods, right? And this is where you're going to see slightly better benefits. But again, if you're planting trees, for example, and you're getting large XP drops, you will get almost negligible benefit to that in this situation, right? So I think the name of the game of this skill and this relic to really maximize your benefits is you want to do fast tick method of training. For example, for wood cutting, you can do like 2 tick teak, right? Things like that. That is a lower XP drop, but you're chopping wood a lot faster. And what that allows you to do is maximize the added 32 extra XP per tick or per XP drop, right? That's where you'll see the most benefits. But again, making those big XP things, you won't really have that value. All right. Now, let's not forget one of the most important things in here is the GP engine, right? Early on, thieving from men and women, you're going to actually generate more gold from this than you would from the actual coin pouches, right? Now, we don't have an early T1 thieving relic as we did in the past, and so that's kind of a really important kind of coin unlock. Remember, stores don't deplete, so once you get some early GP, you can start buying your resources and just go absolutely nuts, right? Now, just to put that into context, right, if you get to base 50 in all skills, that'll get you around like 2.3 mil XP, and that means it's a 4.6 mil GP. That's a great kind of early league kind of goal to have, and then that's a great amount of starter cash to kind of buy your runes, buy your materials, buy your pickaxes and whatever else you might want to kind of really get going into the mid game. Then when you get to base 80s, again, that comes out to around 45 mil XP, and that's 91 mil gold. And so again, that's a pretty large amount of coin to have carry you through like kind of like the mid to late game, right? Now remember, no one's going to be really kind of like doing base 80s. Most people are going to have some skills that are really high and some skills that are really low. Again, every XP drop, I'm just taking kind of like an average here of where it's going to round out to. That's kind of the XP you're kind of expect at the point. Right now, the post 99 grind, for those of you who are planning to max all of your skills, go for dragon tier, right? You're going to be going for those 25 mil XP tasks, right? And so 21 of those skills, if you were to have 25 mil XP, you'd be around 525 mil XP. Right now, for 2 combat skills, because everyone kind of usually selects one core mastery, and in that core mastery, let's say it's ranged or melee or magic, right? Your strength or your magic or your range skill will probably have a ton of XP. You probably will max out at 200 mil. If you're not doing a lot of PVM content, I think you still might get at least the 25 mil just for the task, but you're probably more likely to maybe end up around 100 mil. Just depends on how much in the league you play, right? So if I'm just going to calculate all of that out, that'll sum you up into 725 mil XP, and then you double that, that's at 1.45 billion GP, right? This is probably enough to kind of max you through the game. Again, it's not going to be enough to really like build you all of the demonic thrones and crystal thrones that you would want to maybe max out in construction. I know we don't know that if we're going to get Golden God this time around, right? But if you are going to be savvy about your coins and you're not going to pick Golden God later on, you can use this as a very valuable XP generator. And by the time you're kind of maxing, you can also finish out some of those top end tasks that might be money heavy. Again, I think it's going to be great power to kind of get you off the ground and running early on and get some money. And it's also going to get a good amount of money if you take this all the way to the end game. So abundance versus equilibrium. I think the main things I want to call out between these two relics is that Equilibrium was a T4 relic, and I believe last league it actually competed with Golden God, and Golden God was just utmost unreal amount of power with the money, with the infinite, like just guaranteed 99 magic the moment you logged into the game with it on, and you just kept auto alching, didn't matter what you were alching, right? That right there unlocked so much power that kind of, for me, Equilibrium wasn't as strong. Right now, Equilibrium did have a much higher XP bonus multiplier because it would give you 10% or 20% in your lowest skill. And so let's say your total level was like 2000 and you were training like rune crafting, which was maybe your lowest skill, you could get 400 XP per drop, which is absolutely insane. That is so much. That's more than 10x more than what you could ever get with the new Abundance Relic, right? But the main difference here is that at tier 4, it was competing against Golden God, a much other different power level relic, right? Now we get to pick Abundance early on. Now don't forget, the plus 10 boost is huge, okay? Any task that you need to have a certain level to do, you will be able to do it 10 levels earlier. And this becomes really relevant, especially getting into the 90s when you only need level 80. Like for example, for Onyx jewelry, for crafting it and enchanting it, you need level 90 crafting. You're only gonna need the 80s to do that, right? And that's going to be a really good boost to kind of unlock those high-end tasks that are blocked behind high levels. You'll be able to do them 10 levels earlier. Again, so Abundance is really kind of boosting you into that late game with that boost. And it's also giving you the early game boost where your skills just level up a whole lot faster and creates that base GP. Now, I'm not saying Abundance is necessarily the best relic for your T1 selection, right? I think that really depends on if you want to AFK, if you want to just focus training on some other skills. And right now, we just don't know enough about all the other relics. Abundance is overall one of the most well-rounded relics and probably the most well-rounded T1 relic I think we've ever seen, because it impacts all of the skills and GP, which are some of the most foundational core aspects of the game to really get going. If any of you have played an Iron Man in the past, you know that generating money is pretty poverty play style until you get to probably just CG. And so having that kind of resolved for you is huge. And so I'm overall very highly considering abundance. It really depends on, for me, whether the other skills get a really good benefit with other relics that I'm not missing out on. In that case, I might pick the Barbarian relic that we have introduced as well. Again, it's a really powerful relic. I just want you to all keep in mind, and I just wanted to kind of give you my review of abundance overall. Again, thanks so much for watching. If you like this style of video where I go deep into it, definitely subscribe and tune in for more videos. Like the video, that feedback kind of encourages me to make more videos. And if I messed up any of the calculations, just remember I did intentionally put the wrong math on one on the mid level and the right math on the high level. Again, leave your comments and your feedbacks. Would love to know what you're thinking. And thanks for watching.